following program is sponsored by The Greek, Ely's Radio Shack dealer at 570 Altman in downtown Ely, and brought to you as a public service by Georgetown Media in Ely, Nevada. Ely City Council meeting, March 11th, 2021.
You'll join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I believe we've got Harry right here for our vocation.
In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Lord, guide us as we come together for these deliberations. Help us to keep in mind those most in need of our constituents. Help us to remember to assist all those in need. And please, Lord, help us, let us remember those who have passed away from this coronavirus. And we ask that you take and give comfort to all of their families. We ask this through Jesus Christ. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you.
Nice job,
We'll have the roll call.
Mayor Robertson,
Present.
Councilman Allworth,
Present.
Councilman Carson,
Here.
Councilman Flangus will be back. Councilman Spear,
Here.
Councilwoman Beecher is absent tonight. City Clerk Lee, here. City Treasurer HR Director Trask, here. City Attorney Manueli,
Here.
City Engineer Almberg,
Here.
Public Works Supervisor Craycraft,
Here.
City Fire Chief Stork,
Here.
City Police Chief Henroyd,
Here.
City Building Official Walker,
Here.
and that's all.
Okay, thank you. With that, we'll move on to public comment. Please state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, on your agenda item 10B6, you're to consider the approval of Third Amendment to the Development Agreement with the Nevada Northern Railway Foundation Incorporated. This needs to be denied until the railroad comes back into the city's oversight. They need to begin to operate under the Nevada Open Meeting Law as they did originally. They're receiving over $240,000 or more in new tax revenue and grants. The citizens and the taxpayers have no idea how that money is spent, and there exists a conflict of nepotism with Mr. Brent Bassett managing the railroad and his wife, the bookkeeper. My request for public information dated back in October of 2015 has yet to be answered. Rumor has it that the Nevada Northern Railroad has suffered embezzlement of tens of thousands of dollars. The taxpayer has no idea if that is true or whether it was federal grant money, room tax money, or gift money that was taken. Councilwoman Beecher, Councilman Allworth need to disclose the truth and resign. They're not properly protecting the city's interests, and they have an obligation. The railroad management needs to play it straight and be accountable for city property and revenue, or they need to resign. You can't let this go forever, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I want to know what the status of Avenue A is located along the front of the Railroad Museum. Is Avenue A city property, or did the city knowingly install the federally assisted utility on private property? I want to remind you that I asked in the past the same question. I've seen paving put down near the museum and possibly encroachment when the Jack Taylor Park was installed, and having having curb, gutter, sidewalk, and parking possibly put on private property along Avenue A. Mayor Robertson, I understand that you're the project manager for the railroad. I'm requesting your answers in writing. We need to resolve this. Mr. Mayor, I've not received an answer in regards to the disposition of the 490 linear feet of 16-inch steel pipe from the Murray Street project. I remind you that the NRS 281.481 forbids public employees and or officials from having preference in buying or selling public property. It's getting old, Mayor. Mr. Mayor, more than a year ago, I asked for a copy of the former enforcement officer's log to see which violations that I turned in he addressed or ignored. As of this date, I've not received any information, and I want that information, Mayor. Mr. Mayor, more than a year ago, I gave you documented copies of discrepancies regarding selective enforcement of city codes located throughout the city, as well as discrepancies regarding the utility billing of some of my properties. I never heard back from you. I requested a copy. I am requesting a copy, the date stamp on those items that you investigated and the outcome of each occurrence or concern. I've waited long enough.
Thank you, George.
I need some answers, Mayor.
Any other public comment? Hearing and seeing none, we will move on to item 3, mayor discussion for possible action, approval of agenda, including removal of agenda items. I'll entertain a motion or, I'll entertain a motion. I'll move to approve. Do I have a second? Second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Agenda is approved. We'll move on to item 4, city department reports. We'll start with the fire chief.
Only thing in addition I got to report is we conducted interviews yesterday, and we'll be making a job offer tomorrow for our one open position. So I made some phone calls today, never got a response, so I'm going to try again tomorrow to make contact.
It appears that we've had a lot more candidates since we started this hiring people. More people seem to be interested.
Yeah, we got a few more. I mean, it's still, I don't know what it is. It's just slow. Crazy. I mean, in the past, I mean, type of job that's super sought after, and I think just, I don't know, people are getting paid too much money to sit home on unemployment right now.
On the 25 volunteers, does that include?
That counts, that does count the career staff on that listing. Yeah.
Good report.
And then I'm working on I'll show you after the meeting, I'm working on an additional report with paramedic level calls. Because right now the way it works is the way the calls are set up, so we can have an ALS 2 charge which shows up on my report as a paramedic call, but however, if we do 2 medications and advanced EMT does 2 medications, that'll show up as an ALS charge. There could be paramedic interventions that will still be an ALS 1. It don't mean they get charged at a higher rate just because we do a paramedic level care, like reading a 12 lead heart monitor or something like that. It's still going to be charged at the lower rate. So I want to try and get that clarified so that it's a little more descriptive in that report.
So if advanced, if I understood you right, paramedics on scene and an advanced EMT can do an injection, say a fentanyl?
No, so say a paramedic's on scene and he gives 2 types of medication, say a pain medication and a nausea medication. So that's an ALS 2 call.
Okay.
Say a paramedic's not on scene and there's just an advanced EMT, and that advanced EMT gives albuterol and say Benadryl. That's 2 medications that they give. That's charged an ALS rate 2 also.
Okay.
So it's charged, the rate is by the amount of interventions you do, not so much the level of care. So I'm trying to work on getting a different report so you can see just how many were actual paramedic skills versus the advanced skills. So,
Good.
any other questions?
Thank you. Municipal court judge? Think we had anything from the city attorney? We did, I'm sorry. Do you have anything?
I'm good.
Okay. City attorney, do you have anything to report?
No.
Okay. City clerk?
I don't have a report.
City treasurer?
Okay, I'm reporting on HR. I have a policy that I'm working with Pool Pat regarding use of personal vehicles for work. And because it'll be a policy, I need to bring it before the board, so I will probably be requesting a special meeting sometime next week. It'd be towards the end of the week if we can get it together. Oh, sorry.
So
Do you want me to repeat what I just said?
Talking to your mic.
I know. Do you want me to repeat what I said?
I caught it.
You got it, okay. And then just an update, we have an opening for a service worker in the wastewater treatment plant, and the opening that was approved last time for the utility accounts clerk that's been advertised.
Thank you. City Public Works Supervisor.
I just wanted to add that the last week I've been talking with Terry Gus, John Flaherty, and Dave Huckabee. They're on the committee for the Traveling Vietnam Veteran Memorial Traveling Wall. It will be here on the last day in June and then stay through the 4th of July weekend. So that will be here for sure. And then with that, I know there's been some talk about that money from the tour and rec, the $9,000 for the bathrooms. We will start spending the money on that in the next week to get them up to somewhat code for they'll be ready for that weekend also.
Great.
Mike, down in your report in the section on the streets, what are the plans for Parker and Stevens Street, in that neighborhood right in there for fixing the roads?
From Ogden over to Orson, all them roads from North Street down will be done with the cold overlay with the chips all over the top.
Okay, thank you, perfect. That'll probably, no doubt, start in late spring.
Yeah.
Is that the same thing they did on Avenue C there?
Yes.
Okay.
And where, C? Yeah,
C?
it is C, yes.
Yeah.
Same exact thing.
Perfect, all right, thank you.
Mike, I had a question about the animal control report. It didn't look like they issued any citations for February.
What's that?
They didn't issue any citations for February, I noticed.
I'll have to talk to,
Is it just, you know, what's going on?
I do know that he always tells me that the winters are always the slowest months.
Sure.
And things will pick up when people start getting out and about again.
Okay. Thank you. City water operator, you have Raul's report there. City engineer.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
I noticed on Raul's report a concern he brought up about the blue water going through the sewer plant.
Yeah.
Did they figure that out? Or hopefully got a handle on it?
We sent 2 letters, or rather I should say Attorney Manueli sent 2 letters to the companies that Raul was referencing. The Public Works Supervisor Craig Kraft also recommended we have a couple of larger entities in town that allow RVs to dump, that have dump stations. And so letters were also sent to them, just making them aware of the code, that that's illegal dumping, so.
Where, do we know where they're discharging it at, the dumping?
No, it would be, yeah.
It all
That's the problem.
all flows downhill.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
City engineer.
We got working on our, they moved in this week up on Murray Street for the sewer, and so work's beginning to preliminary start up there on that project. Obviously, you guys see the Almond Street project going, they're very busy down there. At this point in time, things seem to be going well. We did get our CDBG presentation exhibit completed and got it up to Jennifer for everybody to review. And we'll get that into CDBG because our presentation for the next phase of that sewer project is coming up in the next couple of weeks with CDBG. I was out of town last week, so I'm still getting caught up. So, any questions for me? All right, thank you.
Thank you. City building official, anything to report?
Hello. Since my start date on the 1st, I have been doing some inspections and going around. I had an email come to me via Mr. Allworth about a possible permit violation. We checked on that, and they did not after me and Jennifer checked on that. And a stop work order was issued and has since then came in and took the necessary steps to get his permitting, and he paid all of his penalties, and he's back up and running again. There was another instance where another person was in possible violation, but I went and talked to them, and it wasn't a permanent structure, it's only temporary, so didn't feel it was needed permitting at all. Since my start date, I have purchased a residential building inspector B1 study guide from the ICC website. I've been passing numerous quizzes and tests, and this last week I took the time examination on it, similar to the building inspector exam itself, and I passed. So I'm looking to maybe next week to actually take the actual test to get the residential building inspector certification. And today I shadowed Brad up to the Justice Center. Him and Jennifer have been really helpful during this whole time, so it's been really nice. And the more residential things are pretty easy, so I've been just doing those on my own, and that's about it. Any questions?
I don't think so.
No.
Thank you.
With that, I'm going to turn the gavel over to Mayor Pro Tem Jamal for the NNRY Foundation report.
Yeah, I believe Mr. Bassett's in the audience there, so Mark, come give us your word of wisdom.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Our 2021 schedule is up, and the first trains run this particular weekend. We are following state guidelines, and we're planning on 50% capacity until we hear otherwise. Locomotive 81 is coming along quite nicely. We've been doing some maintenance around the yard, getting ready for the season. In February, we did take a slight hit on our passenger load. We carried 238 passengers. It's a decrease of 74.22%. So, pretty happy with that. The big news from February was the photo shoots. We hosted 2 winter photo shoots and 1 photo workshop, and they were well attended. And I included a couple of photos in my report. So, this weekend, we have trains running on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So, and we'll be running now, hopefully, all the way through until the end of the year. Any questions at all? All right, thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Back to you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, we'll move on to number 6, reports. City Council, we'll start with Councilman Blankus.
I have nothing to report at this time.
Councilman Carson.
No report.
Councilman Clear.
Same.
Councilman Oliver.
One thing I have, excuse me, Mr. Mayor, to report is, I don't know if this is the time to bring it up or during the utility board meeting, got off the internet from Reuters. The headline, Polish miner KGHM looking to sell 2 U.S. copper assets. Poland state-running mining company KGHM plans to sell its Robinson and Carlita copper mines in the United States and reinvest the proceeds in its domestic operations, 2 banking sources told Reuters. So to me, I just want to put that out there. This is the 7th day. This is dated March 4th. I don't know if our newspaper is going to do this, but dealing with the water situation we're tying in with the mine, I think this is something that really needs to be addressed, or some communications coming from the people up on the hill. Thank you.
Thank you. For my report, you may be noticing I'm wearing a Wendover will pin because I lost the bet with the mayor of Wendover on the boys soccer game for the high school this weekend. They let me down. And I let them know they let me down. But here we are. So they'll do better next time, I hope. And just by way of information, I'm not sure if the council or the public's aware, but Louis Sandberg, a longtime member of our community, died this last week. He did a lot of good work in our community with Scouts and Cub Scouts and a lot of charitable work, and he will certainly be missed. I remember talking to him probably a couple of years ago. I said, Louis, what have you been keeping yourself busy with? And he says, cutting wood for old people, keeping in mind that he was in his 90s himself. So we're sorry to lose Mr. Sandberg. Also, the Great Basin Heritage Area grant that I was able to put in for the city hall did get funded for an extra $20,000 on that masonry window project. We're excited to be able to put in for that, and that will come before the council for approval of acceptance at our next meeting. And just to update the council, kind of where the committee is at for the fire EMS joint agreement with the county. Our committee has provided them information, provided them our proposal. Have yet to receive any counter proposal or any other request for information, so we're just kind of waiting to see what, if, or anything they want to do. Also on that thing that you mentioned there, Jim, regarding the mine, I did get a notification from the Polish consulate about that as well, and I did look at the same article. I did send that up to the general manager of the mine. She said she wasn't aware that they were for sale, so I don't know if they just haven't told them or what, but yeah, some more information from the people up there would be great. I agree. That's all I have for my report.
Well, you know, I'd like to follow on that, Mr. Mayor. A couple of sitting in this building, we worked for the mine, not this mine, in '99, and they said they were going to try to sell it, and we just got a call and they shut the gate. So it's nice to take the worry off people.
Sure.
But I think we need to push a little harder to get to the bottom of this right here, because they can try to sell it. This is my opinion. They can try to sell it, but they can still shut their doors until they sell it.
Yeah. And that would be unfortunate. Hopefully the exceedingly high prices of copper at the moment keep them from doing that. But yeah, you're right, you just never know. So, well, with that, we'll move on to item 7. The mayor will, not quite. I always get ahead of myself on these hearings. We'll move on to item 9. Items for discussion and possible action of the Ely City Council as recommended by the Municipal Utilities Board. Item 1, Councilman Carson, City Tree Board Chairman Bill Wolf. Discussion for possible action, approval to grant authority to landfill Liebman to release clean wood chips deposited at the city landfill to the City of Ely Tree Board members for beneficial community uses in perpetuity. Hi, Bill.
Indeed, Bill Wolf, Ely Tree Board. As I mentioned at the utility board meeting, the chips there's 2 kinds of chips floating around town. Some of them were out at Randy Weber's. And they were made by John Albert's machine, and it would kick out pieces that are as big around as your thumb. I mean, it was really a large size chip that came out of that. What the chips are getting up there now are the ones from vendors that have come in and they're pruning trees around town, and the chips that come out are a lot smaller, easier to manage, a lot cleaner. And those chips, instead of just going into the landfill, they'd really be useful if we could use them around the community. In landscaping, in public areas. I've talked with the guys at the fellow that's overseeing the city corral. I've seen chips used to good use in livestock areas, and you know, when they clean out the corrals, they just put in the chips, and now the chips are great. They're ready to go compost, and maybe someday in the future we can get to the point where we're doing that also. But the point is, there are good chips up there that are usable in the community in public spaces, and if we can use them in public spaces instead of them just taking up space at the landfill, that seems to me to be a good thing.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion on this item.
Question.
Oh, yeah.
Are they used to keep weeds down or keep moisture down, Bill, or just for
Both.
spraying?
No, they can be for all 3. I mean, realistically, if you put them on thick enough, they will suppress weed growth, and so we could use them along fence lines at, like, say, the water treatment plant or something like that, those open areas. If we get 3 or 4 inches in there, they should keep the weeds suppressed. When you do it around landscaping, it helps keep moisture in the ground and suppress weeds, and looks kind of good.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
I'd just like to say, I think this is a great idea. I'd like to thank Bill and all his volunteers for coming up with this idea and putting it to good use. It's great for the community, and this was in front of the utility board this morning, and they did recommend approval, so I will move to approve.
One second.
We got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 2, board members, city clerkly discussion for possible action, approval to remove past due utility fee penalties up to the amount of $1,089.03 from 60 North 4th Street, McGill, Nevada, at the request of the property owner, Steve Willis.
The property owner did pay the landfill fee balance, and so he's requesting waiver of penalties.
And then the utility board this morning looks like they did approve that as well.
They recommended to approve, so I'll move to approve.
Another motion to approve from Councilman Carson. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
We have 3-4, 1 against, motion carries. We'll move on to item 10, items for discussion, possible action only of the Ely City Council, the consent agenda. We've got minutes from February 3rd, February 11th, and February 18th, and then bills from February 21st and February 25th.
Okay, I have a question on the February 3rd, under Mr. Chaffet's discussion. It says the property is at 745 Alton. I don't think that's the right address, is it? What's your address of the Greek Radio Shack?
570, what's on there?
745.
745 Alton. So we fix that. I'm pretty sure that was wrong.
Page 2,
Public comment.
paragraph 4.
Okay. Then we have on the, I think it's kind of like the title probably under, but halfway down page 4, Councilman Dirt asked, does the current applicant hold any license? I think we hold any license is one of plural on that one. Then on the next set of February 11th, it says city engineer, it's the third page, under the city engineer, engineer overstated we are waiting on sewer manholes and hoping to start by March 2020. I think it's supposed to be March of 2021. Right?
Yes.
Okay. And under the next item, we were discussing number 7, George Chaffetz stated that those two small parcels property road, and that Mr. Chaffetz's stock was Chuck Langis's estate. I think it's Gus Langis's estate.
Talk in the mic, will you, Ed?
Oh, excuse me.
Did you say Chuck Flangus?
It says Chuck Langis, I think it should be Gus.
It is, thank you.
I think that's all I got.
Would you be willing to make a motion with those corrections?
I'd like to move to approve the minutes and the bills with the corrections I've stated on the minutes.
Do I have a second? Further discussion or any questions? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda is approved. We'll move back to item 7. The mayor will recess the regular city council meeting for a public hearing at 5:30 p.m. on the following topics. Item 1, Councilman Flangus, public hearing, discussion only. Approval of second reading of ordinance 741, Bill 2021-04, amending Chapter 2 of Title 8 entitled Public Ways and Property, Cemetery of the City Code of the City of Ely, replacing Chapter 2 in its entirety and specifically updating operating hours, use of vehicles, headstones, and decorations of grave sites. We will go to public discussion from both the council and the public.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, on section 8.2-6A3, it states any border encasing the grave site must be flush with the ground. That is not being adhered to. I don't know how close you've looked at there. On the next item, section 8-2-6G, states the city is not adhering to its rules. Trees are to be planted alongside the outer perimeter of the cemetery. Benches are prohibited, yet there are at least 2, if not 3, on the upper part of the cemetery along Campton. Again, either we have rules and regulations or we don't. And then there was nothing in here in regards to closing off the cemetery to traffic after a given hour. The lower gate or entrance on Ottman needs to be reinstalled. There's no reason for people to go through there. Sometimes I go home using Canton late at night, 10, 11 o'clock, and you got people cruising